recording now. And somebody talk to me. Ganesha, talk to me. Say, hey.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
And I guess that means you can hear me. Good. So let's see. I am recording, and this is July 2nd. Goodness, it's July already. 2019. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of ITSC 2309. A couple of things that I'm doing that has changed a little bit. I wrote into the syllabus that I was going to be taking a couple of lecture days off to take a vacation. Unfortunately, we've had a little setback on that, and we're not going to be able to travel internationally to Canada. So basically, I'm going to stay. I'm not going to miss the 2 days at the end of this month, so I'll be here for that. And I was planning on going ahead and doing a class lecture on the 4th of July, but I think I'm not going to do that. So we're just going to take 4th of July and not do a lecture. Now, there will be a test running at that time. So as soon as I finish lecture tonight, which we're not going to cover a whole lot, I'm going to go ahead and turn the test one on and make it available to you. I have made the practice test available. You should do the practice test before you do the test. That's the idea. If you do well on the practice test, you'll do well on the test. Most of the people who do the practice test just blow the test out of the water. It's not that difficult. It covers everything. It covers through joining tables, and I'm going to review tonight. So that's my objective tonight, is just is to review. So if you're up to speed, what I am also going to do is I'm going to have a time when I will accept code, when I will accept things that are late. I'll do that from time to time. Now, I don't do this to encourage you just to wait around forever to turn them in, but I just like to be able to get your stuff. I like for you not to run out of time on it. I try not to do that. On the other hand, I do have to get the stuff in. And if what I don't want is to end up with everything on the last day of class. You do that to me, I will not be happy. But I try to open stuff up to where you can turn stuff in if you've missed something. Okay. So we will not have a lecture on Thursday, and go enjoy the fireworks or whatever it is you do. I don't care a whole lot for fireworks myself. I don't know how you feel about them. To me, they're noisy and, oh, whatever. You don't want to hear about that. Okay, so carrying on today. One of the problems that I see that we have is lots of people don't have their databases set up correctly. Oh no! Well, this never happened to me before. Maybe what I am doing right now is getting in and changing the modules such that they reflect what I really want you to do. Okay. Now let me go to the module. Let me go to the database right now. On your databases, so here is my Object Explorer, and I have one. This is my.
Hi, Professor. Can you share your screen, please?
What's oh, I haven't shared.
Yeah, you haven't shared the screen.
Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted you to stop me for. I noticed something was a little strange going on there. Yes, you can see it now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for stopping me. Okay, I'm going to go now to my database, and yours should look this same way. I don't know. I'm going to databases, and I'm going to be going here. Under databases, there should be 2 databases. Now, if there are others, that's fine. You can have others. I'm not worried about them. I'll show you how to get rid of them today. I want you to have one of them that is named AP_DB. I want it named like that, because if we don't agree on the name of that database, when you send me code that runs in AP_DB, when I'm expecting that and you name it something different, Now we got a problem, and I know that sometimes that there's a little equivocation. There's some differences in what I said in the modules, but I want you to follow what I'm saying in lecture. So AP_DB. We have another one named Scratch DB. Think of Scratch DB as scratch paper. Anything that's in Scratch DB, you may delete anytime you feel like deleting it. I recommend that you not change radically APDB, leave the tables pretty much as they are, or if you change them, go back and run the creation routine. So let's say that you don't have these. Let's say that something is wrong here. You've named it something wrong, and it's just not working right for you. Okay? I'm going to show you how to fix it. And I will give you this, this file. First thing I want you to do is go find the file named create_ap.sql. You'll find a copy of it located in Module 2, page 5. Okay, that's what we ran to create our AP database. Create AP, accounts payable database. Okay, once we find that, and now it's someplace where I can get to it easily, I'm going to open the Databases tab here under my Object Explorer. Drop him down, open him, open the Databases tab. So we want to be here. And then select the database to modify. So let's say that the one I want to fix is the is AP_DB. So got this one. This is the one. I've named it wrong. It's named AP, just plain AP, for example. I can't just change its name. It won't let me change the name. I don't think it will let me change the name. Let's say it won't. So I'm going to right-click it, and I'm going to go to Tasks, and I'm going to go to Take Offline. Boom. Now I've written that here. Okay, well, there's one other thing I said to do first. Right-click, select Properties. Let's do that first. So I won't take it offline right now. So right-click him, select Properties. We'll follow what that file says. And then I want you to select the Files tab in here. And there are two files. Make a note of these two files. There might be more sometimes. Make a note of these two files. Now these two files are where your database lives. They are what's going to get recreated in a little while. So here is the MDF file is where your database really is, and the log file is it was the log file. Where are they? They're in C:, program files, Microsoft SQL, and so we need to make a note of that. So I don't know that I don't think you can copy and save that. So it's in program files, /Microsoft SQL BER. This one might not be the same, MS SQL. This is the name of your server, MS SQL 14, SQL Express, /MSSQL /data. The name of the files, both of them begin with AP_DB, MDF and AP_DB log. We're going to need to delete these files because deleting the database will not delete those files. Okay. So once I have made a note of where they are, I can close this. And I can go back to, I guess I can close it right here. Okay, and go back to my database, right click it again. And that one I got to through properties. This time I'm going to tasks. I'm going to go to tasks and I'm going to say take offline. Take it offline. Right now it's in ready status. What does this say? Drop all active connections. You'll probably say yes to that. This is fairly drastic. We're going to essentially shut down the database. Say, okay, are you sure? Oh, failure. What's this? Okay, what I'm going to do is log out. No. APDB. Tasks. I want to take it offline. Okay. Now he's offline. Just say take offline. You don't say drop active connections. So now he's offline. Now there will be at least 2 files. Take offline. You may now drop the database. This is drastic. Do not do this normally, but this is how you get rid of a database that you created that you don't want anymore. Okay, I might have it, and so get rid of it. So I can right click it and go down to delete. Okay. Delete backup history. Uncheck. Should have deleted it. Oh, it didn't. Let's right click him again. Tasks, try detach. Well, okay. Oh, okay. What I need to do, and I'll put this in the instructions, what I need to do right now is I need to log off, and I'll drop out of I'll close the server, and I will log back in. I'll log out of the server and come back in. And I'll need to do this in a minute anyway, to my my SQL Management Studio. Good morning. I'm going to come back in, but I'm going to come in as the Windows user. Now, the Windows user is the administrative user. That lets me do anything I want to do. So instead of SQL Server authentication, I'm going to select Windows authentication. Now, when I log in now, I am the Windows user. I'm logging in as the owner of the database. It doesn't ask me for a password into the database. Because basically, if I can log in as the Windows user, I can do about anything. And now I can delete the database, and it's gone. Okay. So whatever it was, it is now gone. Now there's a couple of things I need to clean up. I need to go into PC. To the C drive, program files, and that path I wrote down, MS SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server 14, MS SQL data, and there are the 2 that I had. They're the one that starts with APDB and APDB. Notice that they're scratched down here and mastered. Oh, don't worry about those 2, but the 2 that you want to kill are these 2 that say APDB on them. Delete them. And they're gone. Okay. Now I'm ready to start again. So I've gotten rid of that database I didn't want. And the way that I did that, I had to log in as the Windows user, and then I can delete it. I believe it would have let me delete it had all I done and logged in as the Windows user, but it's a good idea to take it offline anyway. I also needed to make a note of where those two files were, because had I tried to recreate it with the same name, it would not have let me do that. So I'm going to right-click Databases, go to New Database. I'm going to give it a name. Okay. How we got here was some of you, some of you people, you didn't pay attention to the name. The name is AP underscore DB. Has to be that. Now the owner is you. I am S.W. Smith. Your owner name doesn't matter. Your owner name's different. Okay. Now this is the excuse me. Okay, there's the path to the files. These are the files where the database will really be. You don't think of it being in files, but it is. So the owner is your username. Questions on that? And I believe that's everything. I'm going to say OK. There's my database. Now I'm ready to come back in. I'm going to disconnect, reconnect. This time I want to reconnect as SQL Server authentication with my name, S.W. Smith. I am the owner of that database. So I'm the owner of APDB. Now there's nothing in it yet, but we're going to fix that right now. Okay. So I'm going to go File. Several ways I can do it here. I could go to a new query, or let's see, I have my file right here someplace. I could double click him, create AP. Oh, that's the file I want to open. So here it is. This is the script. Now I could have opened and pasted him in there. It would have worked just fine. Notice that he's going to use APDB. And he's going to drop, there aren't any tables in there, but he'll drop them. When I execute him, and 4 or 5 seconds later, query executed successfully. Now, if I go look at the tables, I'll have to refresh. Refresh. Now let's look at the tables. Okay, let's pull it all the way down. Lots of times you have to refresh him because there we go. Okay, I'm still not seeing the tables. They're there though. If I were to go to a new query, I can test him. I can say select everything from vendors. And of course, what I have to say before I do that, what's the first line of every query? Use AP underscore DB. And that's what it's going to be pretty much for the whole time that we're using vendors and all of that. I'm pretty sure he got created. I don't know why he's red. Okay. Execute. Am I connected? Edit. Oh, let me see if I can drop the connection. Databases. I should start seeing my tables here. I don't know why I'm not seeing the tables. New query. Use AP underscore DB. Well, it's giving me an error on it. Open. Now I'm going to execute. Everything's fine. All the files are created. Okay. Well, looks like I'm finally getting it to work. I don't know why it wasn't working a minute ago. So now when I open this and see the tables, I'm still not seeing the tables, but that doesn't, sometimes this thing takes a long time to update. Sometimes you have to back him all the way down to here and then say refresh. And then when you open him up, you'll finally start seeing the stuff that you're expecting to see. And there's the tables now showing up. So what I did, I dropped the database and then I brought the tables back up. So now I have the table. I have the database AP underscore DB, another database called Scratch DB. Let's look at one other thing that's kind of important here. And that's my user, just found under the security tab. The logins is where your users are. Now you can have as many logins as you want. SA, by the way, is the system admin. I don't really need this guy, and lots of times we disable him just because we don't want people coming in from outside logging in as the system admin. If you are going to log in as a system admin, you have to be sitting at the terminal. Otherwise, you could connect from New Zealand someplace and log into the server. And in fact, I can as SW Smith, but I'm not the system admin. Under SW Smith, if I go down to properties, the properties that are kind of important to me here are a username, of course, my password. I can change my password here. The other one is the default database. You want your default database. I'm defaulting to Scratch DB. If I don't say use AP underscore DB, I don't want to use that one. So I'm defaulting to my junk database. So if I just say create a table, that's where it's going to get created in the Scratch DB. If I want to use the APDB, which I own and can use, so it's one of mine, I have to say so. So that's okay. Any questions on that? I'd run through it again. It didn't. I'm uncertain why it was a little strange about creating the tables and letting me in. I don't know what the problem was. I just have the one database, and it appeared to be running just fine. It wasn't giving me any error messages, but you can run it multiple times. Just because you've run it, it doesn't hurt you to run it again. And every time you run it, it just refreshes the data. So now all of the data is back like it was at the beginning of the semester, with one exception: the dates and times in the invoices table. So the invoice dates have all been brought up to date, meaning that they're fresh. When we get to chapter 10, I think it is, we're going to be talking about dates and time manipulation, and it'll ask for find all of the invoices that were entered in the last 30 days. Well, if it's been 30 days since you refreshed it, you're not going to get any. So you need to refresh at that time. Okay, questions? No,
that was
Tracy.
very helpful.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I just said that was very helpful. Thank you.
Well, I hope it was. I feel like I was trying to figure out what was going wrong, but you will do that from time to time. You say, "What?" It's a series of "what's going on here" moments, and basically the idea is, I think if you log in as the system admin, I believe all you have to do is right-click the database, drop it, recreate it, but you have to be the system admin. I think it's a good idea to take it offline. System admin can drop anything. Okay. A couple of other little things I wanted to talk about is the idea of betweenness. I think this is covered fairly well in the module. We have, I forget the, let's see, what did I do? I had a new query, and I'm going to say use Scratch DB, create table, fee, phi is an integer. I won't make a primary key on it because I'm just trying to get a very simple table. Insert into fee. I don't have to give it a field list. It's a good idea, but I don't have to say that because there's only one place it could possibly go. Values. And let's insert 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and one more. What should I insert? How about 5? Okay, so if I execute this, I should create the table, and it should. And I'm going to say, let's see what we got in there. Select everything. We'll take a look at it. Okay, now I want all of the values of phi and I want to select phi from phi, where phi is between 2 and 5. Now, what is between 2 and 5? Thoughts? In the table. Yes, I'm asking for some input.
3 and 4.
3 and 4 would be one option. You could say 3 and 4. Okay, so what could we? One thing that we'd see would be 3 and 4. So lots of times in computer science, you will find that it will include the, let's see, what does it do? Starts counting at, it will include the first one, but not the last one. So very commonly, you will see 2, 3, and 4. Now, it could be 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. And less likely would be 3, 4, 5. So it could be any of those. And I'm not real sure what betweenness means, but at least I know what it's going to do in SQL. So I'm going to tell you what it's going to do in SQL. It's going to do number 17. It's this one. That's the answer, is 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I run that, it's going to give me 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, I don't like not knowing, but at least I do know. At least I know what it's going to do. It's going to include both of the endpoints. It includes this one and this one. Now, if I ask for between 2 and 7, I would still see 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? If I ask for between -1 and 10, I'm going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I had a blank in there, for example, if I just had 1, 2, 4, and 5, and I said between 3 and 7, I would see 4 and 5. But if the endpoints are there, it will include them. This is why I don't care too much for this one. Therefore, whenever I write it, I will always say copy, select phi from phi, where phi is greater than or equal to 2 and less than or equal to 5. So I will always say the endpoints where it's greater than or equal to 2. Now there is no question about which ones it's going to be. It's going to be all of these. But look, I can change it very easily. So if I want to include the starting position, but not the ending position, which is very common in computer science, when you say betweenness or from 2 to 5, you include 2 but not 5, which is, computer scientists do that a lot. Those of you who have programmed in C or Java know how arrays are numbered, and that's commonly found. You include the low bound but not the upper bound. So now I'm only going to see 2, 3, and 4. Or I can just include the exact middle. Or I can do it any way I like, and I know what I'm going to get. I have greater degree of control over it. So anytime I'm working with betweenness, I will always work with the this way, where phi is greater than, less than, equal to the lower bound, and phi is less than, or equal to the upper bound. Any questions?
Yes, I'm sorry. When you were asking for feedback before, I was looking up my question that I had the other day from our reading. On page 111 in the 2016 guide, it talks about date literals.
Yes.
And so it says, so as you were pointing out, whether it includes or excludes which part of the bounds, it says when you code a date literal and it's got the date listed as a string,
yes,
the time defaults to 12 a.m., which really does not include the date the way we think of it. And so it excludes the endpoint or the upper part of the range based on that. Forgive me, but I just want to be sure I understand what a date literal is. So are you telling me that if you list the date as a char and you put in a date, it does that? But is there there is a date time type?
Yes.
So are they saying that if it were date time type, it would include, let's say it goes May 31st.
Okay, I hear I understand your question, and that we will talk in more detail about that. But that goes to chapter or module. What module was that?
Chapter 8, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see.
Well, that's okay. But so it is.
No,
it is.
I want to pull up that module right quick and at least be able to tell you which module it is, and that is in module 7, subqueries, data manipulation, module 10. That is chapter. Well, is that chapter 8? Module 10, anyway, is where it's covered. Now, in that chapter, we talk about casting and strings and stuff like that. Now, a date, how do I show a date? There's several ways I can do it, but a date literal is a year dash a month dash a day. Okay, so today's date as a literal, let me see, I always get this one wrong, but it's 2019 -07-02. That's the date literal. Now, if you put a colon and a 24-hour time on it, then, so all dates have times. And a date, back in the, remember the Y2K thing? I don't know, are you old enough to remember it? What happened, Y2K, all the clocks were going to roll over to 1900 when we hit the year 2000. And that caused us to rethink how we stored dates. So we went back and we redid the dates, and now the dates start at time 0. So time 0 actually is Happy New Year on the year 1970. I don't know why they chose that, but 1970, when the ball drops and it's now New Year's, that is time 1 second past New Year. And it's the number of clock ticks that have happened since then. So every date has a time associated with it. If you just say the date 2019-07-02, that means 12 midnight. Okay, so that would be 12. Well, it would default to 00 the time. The time would be 0 seconds past midnight. So it would be the first clock tick of the day. So if you said you wanted it between July 1st and July 4th, if your time was currently 12 o'clock, or whatever, if it fell between that, then it would not include July 4th because it was only like 1 second into July 4th. Does that make sense?
Right. No, and that's what I'm saying. That's why it is very deceptive when you see a date literal, and if it's the end point is like the 31st of the month, it doesn't actually include the 31st. And so I just wanted to be able to recognize the difference between a date literal and a date time.
If you said less than or equal to the 31st of the month, it would pick it up.
Right.
It would depend on what time that you had. So I've got a date time. A date time variable has a date and a time in it. And it is something of the form of, it could be 2019, 07, 02 at 10:32 in the morning, 10:32 and 15 seconds. Okay, that would be the time. So when you created that record and you put that time in there, that's the time on the record. Now, is that between July 1st and July 4th? Yes, it is. What if you created that time on July 4th? And it says it's July 4th at 10:32 a.m. and 15 seconds or whatever. And you said, I want to see everything that is between July 1st and July 4th. So I want to see everything greater than or equal to July 1st and less than or equal to July 4th. What it's going to do, it's going to default July 4th to 1 second, to 0 seconds past midnight, actually midnight. Now that's going to be less than the time of 10:32 and 15 seconds or whatever. So it is not going to show. Yes, dates are strange. So you would have to go to, well, the question is, what time of day does it take for comparison? And it takes the first microsecond of that day is the comparison time.
Gotcha. It's the data type that was confusing me more.
Okay. The data type.
I'll wait till we get to that, I guess.
Okay. Well, the data type is just a long integer. The data type is just a number. It's a tick, 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 tick. How many ticks have happened since time 0? So that would be the data type is just a number. Everything goes down to an integer. So we're never going to misrepresent a date and misunderstand it again. So that can't happen. What can it? We'll eventually run out of clock ticks, but we won't misinterpret it. We won't have that problem of Y2K again, year 2000 or year 3000 or anything. I mean, there's other problems that we're going to have with that same kind of thing, but we just essentially ran out of dates on the year 2000. And so we had to fix it. So we fixed it by going, it's a very, very large number. I think it's a 64-bit number. And so every time the clock ticks, that adds 1 to that number. So if it's negative, that means it's before 1970. And if it's positive, that means it's after 1970. And basically it's every date has a time. You can't have a date that doesn't have, well, yes, you can have a date in SQL Server with no time, but the time is the stroke of midnight. And the question is, when the clock goes bong for midnight, what day is it? And the answer is tonight, when the clock hits midnight, it will be July 3rd. Now, if I have a time that is at 10 o'clock on July 3rd, it's going to be less than that stroke of midnight. Excuse me, the stroke of midnight will be less than that time. It'll be greater than. So that's why you won't see that end point. Right, so you'd have to add 1 day to it. Yes, that's a problem. The string, the date literal really doesn't have anything to do with it. The date literal is just, you have to have a way to write the date. Now, you can write the date any way that it pleases you to write it. If you want to write JULY 2, 19, you can write it that way. You just have to tell your program how to interpret it. And that's what we're going to do in Module 10, I believe. Okay.
Thank you.
Probably more than you want to know. Betweenness, though, but the idea of betweenness, if it's an integer, it includes the endpoints. If it's a time is also an integer, but when you talk about less than July 3rd, it won't include anything that is a second into July 3rd. It's only that first little tick of the clock there. Okay. Golly gee, I wanted to cover that. I forget what else I was going to cover. Oh yeah, I was going to cover some things about some people don't have a good idea about joining tables. And joining tables is on test 1. It's a big part of test 1. When I join tables, I am following let me see if I can get to my example file. When I do an inner join of any kind, inner join will always follow a primary key to a foreign key. So from the parent, and I always put the parent on the left, inner join the child. So I'm always joining a primary key of the parent to a foreign key of the child. What always? Always? Well, always for right now anyway. Can I join on something else? The answer is yes, but does it make a whole lot of sense? For example, I could join a table of people to a table of pets on where the person's name matches the pet's name. In other words, I want to find everybody whose name is the same as their pet. Does that make a whole lot of sense? I can join a table of employees to a table of dependents where the employee's IQ is the same as the dependent's shoe size. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the two numbers aren't related. So the only thing that really makes any sense is to join on a foreign key and a primary key. If you don't have a foreign key and a primary key for test 1, I'll tell you this right now. If you don't have a foreign key, primary key relationship, you're joining on the wrong field. Very seldom will you ever inner join on such and such and such and such and such and such. You can, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Most of the time, I want a nice, clean primary key. So I have a parent. The parent has an ID. I have a child. The child has a child ID. The child has some other fields that tell me the child's name, address, and all that. And the child has a foreign key that takes me to the parent table. So the parent can have 0 or more children. And I'm always going to join on the primary key of the parent is equal to the foreign key in the child. If that's not the case, something's wrong. Okay? So for now. Now, do you ever do it any other way? Yes, you can. There's times when you do it the other way. But for right now, where I'm just trying to get the idea of joining tables follows a primary key to its foreign key children. And that's what it does. And it will be one field. Now, maybe I'll have to go through another table. For example, if I had a table of physicians, and physicians have 0 or more patients, and patients receive 0 or more prescriptions, and I want to find out what prescriptions were done by some doctor. I would have to join the doctor's table to the patient's table and then join the prescriptions table. And now I could follow it through from the doctors through the patients to the prescriptions. And I could find out how many prescriptions for aspirin did one particular doctor make, or show me all of the doctors who wrote a prescription for tetracycline or whatever. It would be easily done. So I can go through more than one table, but I am always following a parent primary key to a child foreign key. And I might follow it through 10 tables, but it's always going to be just one. Always, I'm saying always. Here it will always be that. In this class for now, it will always be that. So it'll always be a primary key going to a foreign key. Question. So here's a multi-table join. I can have a parent has children, a child has toys. So a parent has 0 or more children, a child has 0 or more toys. So if I have a toy ID 23, how many parents have one of these? I would have to follow that through the child table up to the parents. So I would have to find all the children and then go and find all the toys. I like that example pretty well. When I go to the outer join, typically speaking, okay, I am not going to cover the full outer join. I ask no questions about that on the test. No questions about full outer join. Do not write full outer join as an answer. That's not the answer. I'm looking for a left outer join or a right outer join. In an inner join, the order does not matter. So any way I want to do it, I can do it. Parents join to the child or a child join to the parent will give me the same result. Whichever one I want to put first, it doesn't matter. When I get to the outer join, I say the join points in one direction. So I have a left outer join or a right outer join. If the join is pointing to the right, it's the table on the right that I will see everything from that table. A left outer join, I will see everything from the table on the left. This is very useful when I am trying to find, well, the two big ones, and you're going to see both of them, are finding unmatched records, essentially, finding parents who have no children. Okay, that requires an outer join. Find all the vendors who have no invoices. Very common one. You'll see it before you get out of here. Trust me, if you haven't already. Find all of the invalid vendors invoices. So I think there's one invoice in there that is invalid. It refers to a vendor that doesn't exist, and the only way to find that is with an outer join. And those are the two big ones. Other times you'll see an outer join, but those are the two big ones in there. Other questions? Goodness, it's 6:54. Anything burning on anybody's mind?
Quick question about format and for just the class.
Go ahead.
In questions when you don't ask us to or don't tell us to order by a certain value, should we always include an order by anyway and just pick one of the columns or the most appropriate column, or should we leave it out?
Golly, if I don't say, I would say that you can do whatever you'd want to do on it. And if I do say order by this one, then I expect it to be ordered. But if I don't tell you to order by, then essentially excuse me a minute.
Right.
There is no order. And if there is no order, then any order is the same as. Get a little feedback there. If I don't say, then any order is just as good as the next. And I did mute the microphones there. So to speak, unmute and then remute yourself.
Okay, thanks. I just wasn't sure if it was good practice to always put in order by, because I know you said the default will be ascending primary key.
Yeah. Not in a join though. And once you throw in a join, it gets you don't know what's going to happen. So lots of times I do that just so I'll say order by this so I can just check it easily. So when I check your work, oh, by the way, also please make sure that your code, when you turn it in, I want you to take everything off and just say execute. You shouldn't see any errors. So you should have use AP underscore DB. And if you say execute, it shouldn't say error on line 22, no such table or something like that. That's a typo. And don't turn them in with typos any longer. I'm going to get less and less easy to get along with on that. Now, if you make a logical error, I don't know, for example, that challenge question where I asked for the invalid rows and I had to correct it, I don't just blow you away on that if there's something wrong with it. By the way, you should get 2 invalid rows. Okay. If you get more than that, you may be finding the valid rows, because notice that on that one, what was that? That was the last one on module 3 or chapter 3, I believe. It says challenge on it. And lots of times what students will do there, they'll get, if you get 65 or 70 rows, you're finding the valid rows. And just put a not in front of it and that'll fix it most of the time. Taking questions online. And let's see. I am going to go right now while I'm thinking about it. I'm going to go to, hang on. I'm going to go to my modules. Okay, outer join, test 1. Test 1. Okay, I'm publishing test 1 at this time. Now, if you click on test 1, you'll see the instructions. You can go read the instruction. 3 hours means about 3 hours. It's time stamped. I can see what I don't want you to take it and then go overnight with it. So complete it within 3 hours means about. I'm not sitting there with a stopwatch. Okay. You're responsible for observing the time limit. If you, in general, don't run overtime, if you're almost done, you need a few more minutes, just take the few more minutes and don't worry about it. When you follow the link in the next line, you will begin. So don't click that link until you're ready to begin. You will upload. Go ahead and put and use APDB will be fine. Well, unless I say otherwise. I think there's one in there. I want you to use Scratch. I would like for your test to run as a program. So when you start with it, just go ahead and run it. That's what the first thing I'm going to do is download it, save it, and then I run it and look for typographical errors. And that's the fastest way to do that. So you should now be able to see it, to see test 1 in your assignments. It is due on July 7th at 11:59 p.m. That is Monday. Available from, I guess you can't see it, can you?
Well,
July,
it's Sunday.
I do what? Yeah, I know.
Did you mean it to be Monday or Sunday?
July 7th. Thank you. I meant for it to be July 8th. Good thing okay, July 8th is a Monday and available from so I'm making it available now. Saving it. So it's now, you should be able to go to this page where you can read the instructions, and you should see the red, when you follow, you will begin, and that sort of thing. It's available as a Word document. I recommend you download the Word document instead of the HTML. It's formatted a little bit better. And if there are any questions, if there's any problem at all, I will be watching the messages carefully. Questions? I'm going to go ahead and log in on July 4th at 6 o'clock. If you have any questions, I will take questions at that time. So it's just going to be kind of a lab. I'm not going to have anything in special to do. And then we will begin on, let's see, that's going to be July 9th. Will be our next class meeting, will be on July 9th. And then I will start into something completely different, which is subqueries, which is another way of looking at table joins. Okay? Well, if everybody's happy, I'm going to go ahead and get this processing. Take the practice test seriously. If you make a mistake on the practice test, I don't go through there, and if you do it, you're going to get your 5 points. Don't just copy it. It doesn't do any good to copy stuff. I mean, it's there for you. Okay.
Quick question.
Go.
Last thing. Do you want comments as if we are someone who's coding and we're telling you what we're doing, or since this is pretty rote and straightforward, you don't need comments in our work?
Yeah. The reason you typically put comments in your work is to leave a trail of breadcrumbs behind you, and the person that's probably going to need to figure out what you were smoking the day you wrote that is probably going to be you. I understand. I mean, I read SQL well, so you're not writing it to me so much as you're writing it yourself. SQL is when you get a deep one, it's going to be, you're going to have to comment it. But for just go ahead.
So I'm asking this just from the perspective of there are certain things, like you said, we can omit inner from inner join, but for this class we shouldn't. So yes. It's that kind of question. It is, so for what you want to see us turn in, do you want comments? Are they required as part of what you want to see, or do you not care and we don't need to add them?
At this point, I haven't found that they help a whole lot. Now later we'll ask for some more, and certainly as we get into the next class, I'll ask for a lot more of them. But right now and on test 1, I'm not worried about it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Others. Well, if there are no others, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to wrap it up here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm about to bounce the Zoom, and like I say, I'll log back in. I go to by bouncing Zoom, turning it off, turning it back on again, I start my recording processing. So I'm going to go do that now. Stop recording.